Om Shanti, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome to Monday Workshop and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. So before, until everyone joins, let me quickly introduce Sister Judy, the speaker for today evening. Sister Judy is from Halifax, and Halifax is one of the old centers which the service has started for a long period of time, where Baba put his feet there, and Sister Judy takes care of the center there. And let me see if Judy Ben is joining. So just add. Cool. Sister Judy is very inspirational, very professional. By profession, she is a facilitator. She's very kind, and she played a very big role in the development of BK youth. And I myself took a lot of benefit from her offerings to Baba and the family and Yagya. She has so much love for the family. I remember in 2004, first time when I went to Madhuban, I had an opportunity to participate in the youth gathering, youth coordinators retreat in December. And since then, I've been going to the participating in youth activities every year. And as a part of it, more than seva, it is an opportunity to get to know the family closely and also get to know dadis closely. If I wasn't that part of that group, I wouldn't have come closer to dadis or get to know dadis or yagya. And it is mainly because of Sister Judy, Sister Gopi, Sister Deepti, who come together, who make sure we are all sustained very well. So there is so much love, not only for Baba, but also for the family, right? And so that is what keeps us together. For me, Baba is bodiless, Baba is Nirakari, Baba is beyond, right? And Maya attacks us here in this world, right? We need a safety net in this world, and Baba provided family for us to take care of us in this world of adventures, I would say. Right? So today we will hear from Sister Judy, and she's going to share her personal experiences and love for Baba, family, and Yagya. Yeah. Welcome, Sister Judy.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Harsha. It's really nice to see you all grown up. It seems so long ago that we were in the youth forum together now. But anyways, thank you for the invitation to be with you this evening. So I think, you asked me to speak a little bit about my own journey, which I'm happy to do, and then a little bit about effort or practice or focus for now as this next chapter going forward, especially. So I thought a little bit about my own journey to share with you tonight, and I've brought it in the form of a book, if that's okay. And it's a book with 3 chapters. And because books have been important to me on my journey. So, and I'll speak a little bit about those. But I love the title you gave to this, Harsha. It was Love for Brahmin Life, which I think is great, because I do actually have a lot of love for this life. And it surprises me how much I love this life. But sometimes I think, gee, that's a bit of an impediment for achieving perfection, because if you love this life so much, you kind of want to stay with it. But anyways, so I brought these just reflections from my journey. And for those who haven't met me before, this is your sister Judy, and you're going to get to know a bit about her today. So I brought it in 3 chapters. I brought the Me Before Baba chapter, and then I brought the Me With Baba chapter, and then the Me and Baba with the New World chapter. So just in essence, and then I think, Harsha, I'm not sure if this is your format, if you're hoping we'll do a little meditation in the middle and then again at the end. And so happy to do that. Maybe I'll do the first 2 chapters in a little meditation, just
Definitely.
a little break, sort of past and present, and then we'll go into future. How's that?
Definitely works perfect.
Okay, great. So let's start with this one, Me Before Baba. And, some of you may know this, knowing me, and some of you may not. So I just thought I'd go quickly on the Me Before Baba. And you'll see this solo little heart, like most of us were probably little hearts alone in the forest, So that would have been me before Baba. But I was really active. I was an activist, actually, for many years, about 20 years, maybe 25. I lived up in the north of Canada, which you'll see the pictures here. And I spent a decade in Latin America. Very, very committed to grassroots development. And I was a leader in a youth program, a Canadian youth program that took young people to other parts of the world, developing world, to learn about it's called development education. So to learn how the rest of the world lives and what are some of the underlying principles behind the disparate, distribution of everything in our world. And so I spent about a decade in Latin America, and this is the los desaparecidos, the disappeared. Spent a lot of time with the women who had lost husbands, sons, brothers. This is in the 80s, the time of the great dictatorships in Latin America. And it would be the Ronald Reagan era, the US and the Contras and the rebels. And so I went to live in some of the villages there because at that time, a white body was actually an insurance policy for a village. So to have a white body living in the village meant that they were less likely to get bombed. I don't think that's true today, but in the 80s, that was true. So the value of a white body was very interesting. Now, as a Brahmin, I look back and I think, wow, having a white body was useful at that time. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time, hiking, backcountry, outdoors. I had a couple of kids, 2 girls, and I worked as a facilitator consultant with organizations, leadership development, strategic planning, team development, coaching, all of those things. I've been doing that for now almost 40 years. But I took my community development work and development education work, a popular education, liberation theology. These are all community-based development educational strategies that I learned and I used most of my life. So it's how to engage from grassroots up. And then when I started doing organizational development, brought that philosophy and those approaches into organizations, which were very new for organizations, which were quite top down in their approach to change. So became quite well known for engagement strategies, creating unity inside organizations, but with engagement strategies from the ground up, and always very essence-full. And always, when I met Daddy Janky years later, she said to me, "You have a gift." Because she watched me facilitate the Future of Power, the first ever Future of Power. And she pulled me aside and said, "You have a gift." And she said, "It's not a skill, it's not a talent, it's not a speciality, it's a gift from God." And I'm waiting. Great, what's that gift? What's that gift? And she said, "You can save a group from its waste." And then I understood, oh, that's why I do the facilitation work I do, because to help people learn, engage in their own learning, and to be constructive together efficiently, like without the waste that most groups fall into, the waste of ego, the waste of indulgence, the waste of conflict. So I've specialized in conflict resolution and in learning groups, individuals learning in groups so that the group can be effective. So that's my past. And I came to Baba quite late. I was 38 when I came to Baba, and I was already had 2 children, very young children, married, profession, all of that I've just described. But I went to a business conference in Mexico. And it was, which is interesting given my Latin American roots. So I'm on to a new chapter in my life. But I went to this business conference in Mexico, and it was called Business and Consciousness, which didn't really mean anything to me. And Deepak Chopra was one of the main speakers, and Matthew Fox. It was an American hosted conference. And I went to this conference kind of wondering why I was there, because it was not really something that interested me terribly. But I said yes immediately to go to this thing. And I went for a week. And on Wednesday, in the very middle of this week-long event, we had to sit and network, which is sort of a very American way to run a conference. We don't do it quite like that in Canada, but sit, tell each other what you have as a resource, find out what other people have. And I happened to sit on a beach with 500 other people. I happened to sit in a little group of plastic chairs. There were 5 of us. And the person who sat next to me said, I'd like to use this time to look at you all in silence. And I thought, oh, God, please, you're going to look at us all in silence. And so, but it all happened so quickly. Suddenly I turn and he's looking at me. And he's just looking at me. And I immediately thought, get out of my space. And then I thought, oh, I feel really vulnerable and naked. And then I went into bodiless bliss. And I was there for 6 months. And that was my wake-up call. Baba found me on a beach in Mexico at a conference I didn't really want to go to. And I got drishti, but I didn't know it was drishti at the time. I didn't know anything about the Brahma Kumaris, and this soul didn't tell me anything about the Brahma Kumaris. I looked around when, the time was finished. I looked at everyone else in my little group who had also had the same looking at you experience. And I could see in their eyes that they were all either get out of my space or naked. And none of them were in this blissful state that I was in. Now I know the language. I was bodiless. I was blissful. I was gone. And I spent 6 months like this. I left the conference. I did ask that soul to explain what happened to me. And I got riddles. I got things like, well, time is a cycle, and a whole bunch of riddles, no real clear information. But I did understand I was a soul, and I understand that God was in charge of what just happened to me. Those are the only 2 things I understood. I went to bed that night. I got up the next morning, 3:00, boing, in my hotel room, wide awake at 3:00. And I sat up in my bed, and my roommate didn't know what happened to me. I went to breakfast, still bodiless bliss, powerful stage. And I decided, I don't think I'm going to eat meat. No sausages or bacon. And then I went to lunch. I went to the conference and went to lunch, and they were having margaritas at lunch. I thought, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to do alcohol anymore. And I flew home back to Halifax to my little family. And my husband looked at me as we were going to bed. He had no idea what happened in Mexico. And he said, are you celibate? And where would he get that question from? I must have just been oozing purity vibrations. I had no more information than that. That's all I knew. But I'd had a vision. I had multiple visions in Mexico, actually. I won't go into all of those, but one of those was India wearing white. And I had asked this soul, what's this? I had a dream about India wearing white. And the soul said to me, yeah, November's a good time. October, November's a good time. Go to India. And when in Rome, do as the Romans. So wear white. Riddles, all riddles. I knew nothing. My husband says this to me, and I say, yes. I'm celibate now. Next day, I furiously go online to find out white, India, celibate, and I find the Brahma Kumaris. Huh, they don't eat meat, they don't drink, they're celibate, they go to India, they wear white. Oh, maybe this is what I've encountered. So for 6 months, I'm in this blissful bodiless state. My husband thinks that I either had an affair, which I did not, but I was definitely in love. Well, he calls it the zombie phase. Because I was so blissed out and so happy. And I just knew I was with God. All I knew was God and soul. 6 months later, a brother comes from Vancouver, beautiful brother, Michael, comes from Vancouver to open the first center in Halifax. And I'm at the doorstep when he puts the key in the lock, and we meet. And that's the beginning of Bubba's center in Halifax. So in that 6-month period, Bubba just sustained me in this bodiless stage. And then thereafter, he did sustain me because it was just Michael and I for 11 years here alone in Halifax. So the me with Bubba part happened instantaneous. I was an instant Brahmin, but I didn't know what I was. I just know that I lived like that for 6 months until this brother showed up. And I did get an email from the soul in Mexico saying, there's someone coming. There will be a center opening. You can meet this person. So that's how I met him. And in the 6 months that passed, I was the happiest I've ever been in my life. And it was 2 years living with my family before I became a single mom with 2 young girls, and was pretty much from that moment on only involved in service or mothering or working. So the Me with Bubba chapter is, I'll show you this picture of Halifax. As Harsha said, Halifax was the first place, and here it is. You see this big star here on the map? Halifax was the first place in all of the Americas, North, South, and Central, that Bubba stepped foot. And in the form of Sister Mohini came. She lived in Halifax for 6 months, 3 months with a Sikh family at the Gurudwara, and 3 months with a Hindu family at the and went to the temple. She read Murli every day for 6 months, and in that time, not one Brahmin emerged. During her 6 months here, Chanduben came for a period with her. Chandra Ben from Mauritius, who has since flown, came, and Sister Denise. So there were 4 very powerful Shaktis here during that 6-month period, and nothing happened until 23 years later, and I am the first fruit. And it happened in Mexico. So, and this place is a place of hard bedrock, right? So Sister Mohini always says it's hard rock. That place is hard rock, you know. And so, and it took a long time before we had a family here. So it was Michael and I alone. So the first part of my second chapter was growing up. Bubba pretty much kept me here for 11 years with 2 small children. So I was grounded. Really, I couldn't go anywhere. I had to take care of them. And I needed to work in order to afford to take care of them. And at the center, there's sweet brother Michael, who came from Vancouver because his family is here. He's originally from here. And Charlie by giving us the first center certificate for the center in Halifax. So this is a very significant moment. But basically, Michael and I were alone for 11 years, and Michael worked night shift in an extended care facility. So that meant I taught the programs in the evening. And then in the morning, Michael would come home from his night shift. We'd have Murli together, and then he'd go to bed for the day. So the only contact I had with any other Brahmin was Brother Michael for Murli class. So for 11 years, we gave each other drishti. one day he would read Burley, give Drishti to me. The next day I would read Burley and give. I can't believe we survived this, really, actually. If you can imagine spending 11 years with one person giving Drishti. And I know, and I know Brother Michael would say the same thing about this time. There were some years there where it was fairly excruciating to be in each other's presence, that skin peeling off kind of feeling. But to our credit, handled it. I don't know. We never spoke about it, and it passed. And we, there's a great deal of love between us. I consider Michael one of my dearest friends. But anyway, so this early phase of growing up, and so I was a bit like a stallion. I would have gone anywhere in the world to do anything because I had been traveling most of my life. I'm used to facilitating groups in other places, but for 11 years, Baba kept me in this place. And I know now that that's because I needed to mature. I needed to grow up spiritually before Baba could use me well. So part of the practices, this is where writing somehow happened in my life. How are we going to sustain ourselves? How was I going to sustain myself? How was Baba going to sustain me? 2 little kids, work, teaching at the center, and an hour and a half with my brother, my senior brother, actually, 5 years senior to me in Guyana. And that's all. I didn't get out to meet the Brahmin family. We didn't have Zoom back then. So we did have the occasional visitor, and Halifax is quite off the beaten track. It's very expensive to come to Halifax, so very few people came, and we didn't really have the money to fly them out. So we didn't have very many visitors, but one of the visitors we had was Sister Nikki from Vancouver, who was also serving in Jordan at the time. And when she came here, she said, we need daily thoughts, some kind of daily thought written for Jordan, for the Middle East. And they have to be thoughts that come directly from Murli, but you can't use the word soul or God. So they have to be very popularized. You have to take a Murli point and then you have to popularize it. Could you do that? And I said, okay, sure, why not? 23 years later, I still write this daily thought. And it started for Jordan, and it started as a way to support a center that could not meet regularly in a country where it wasn't really okay to be meeting regularly in a spiritual gathering. And so I started writing them for them, and it's since grown into now I write them every day, and they go all over the place, but they're quite substantive. They're not one-liners, they're churned. So this is I think from 2 days ago. They've since grown up quite a bit. But so writing became a very important sustenance practice for me and a churning practice. So I took one of Mohini Didi's quotes from one of her recent, Avyakti Parivars, where she was saying, I don't know what's best for me. Getting everything I want will not always be the best. So this is in the trust theme. And then I just churn it a little bit and I expand on it and write about it for people. So what I want has not always been good for me. Thinking too much about what I want and how I want my life to unfold can leave me disoriented if life doesn't go that way. I can prepare myself internally to be resilient and stable in the face of ambiguity by trusting my destiny. So just as I trust a bench to hold me as I sit, what would life be like if I trusted my destiny and divine support to hold me? Today, let me strengthen my trust in life. So I've been doing these for 23 years, every single day. But for that first 11 years of my Brahmin life, they were pretty much my only Brahmin company, was churning with Baba, a point from the Murli, and making it, simple enough that I could send it to Jordan and know that it wouldn't be threatening, wouldn't be too religious, wouldn't be too, it had to be more like a self-development thing. So since then, writing is a big part of my life. And the first book I wrote was with my 2 daughters in 2014. So this is Lucy and that's Rachel, and Harsha. I would know them from the International Youth Forum. They've since grown up and are quite old. But, and this picture, I think Lucy would have been 17 and Rachel 20. And this is the editor of the first book that we wrote together, and it was called 7 Secrets of the Universe, which is right here. And it was Baba's first ever novel. So all the other books are resource books, you know, learning books, educational books. This is a novel, and it was written to, really, it was written to reassure young people about the state of the world, because I had teenagers and they were seeing what was happening with the world. And so they wrote it with me. And anytime I got teachy or preachy, I got my hand slapped and they rewrote that section. So there's nothing teachy or preachy in this book, which is perfect for young people. There's a tsunami. There's all kinds of death and destruction in this book, because the girls, my 2 daughters, lived through all of that. They lived in China, where they lived through the first SARS pandemic, and where they lived through the tsunami in Thailand. So all of these were their lived experiences. And when we gave it to Sister Mohini for her blessings, there was some concern that we would write a novel that had destructive elements in it and destruction in it. And she said, she gave her full blessings, and she said, young people know what's happening with the world. You need to be honest with them. And so full blessings for the book. And so it walks us through right to destruction and to the other side. And it's since been translated into Vietnamese and Spanish, and it's an audiobook. And it's in Vietnamese because one of the main characters was a Vietnamese girl. And in Vietnam, they recognized instantly that her quiet confidence was reflected of the Vietnamese character, and she's one of the main characters. So they loved that. So that's why it got translated. So there's 4 main characters. Raj is from India, Maylin from Vietnam, Solomon from Ethiopia, and Emily from Canada. And she was one of the daughters. So anyway, since then, these books have happened because it was a way to sustain myself and for Baba to sustain me and keep me churning and expressing, churning and expressing, churning and expressing. I can say more about the books at the end, but there's been a lot of them and they just keep coming. So, but then the family grew a little bit. The family grew just enough that I could leave. And after about 11 years, Baba started sending me around the world. And so as Harsha Bai said, the International Youth Forum, and I consider this the integration phase of my Brahmin life, where I was a facilitator consultant, and then I was a BK. And somehow those came together. I started using spirituality with my Locket consulting work. But then Baba started asking me to use the skills I had from my Lokik world in the yagya. And it started with the Youth Forum, educational exercises and activities that were engaging, that were group building, that were very, I guess, inspiring and uplifting and empowering. And so, and then it turned into travel around the world. And we've done this Choose, Change, Become program, Sister Gopi and I, in many different countries. And this is just a picture of us in Oman. We spent about 6 years in and out of Oman with the Choose, Change, Become program, which was wonderful. But then Baba started asking me to do other programs beyond the youth program. So down here, you'll see Nizar Bai and Anthony Phillips and myself. That is the first ever Future of Power. And I think there were 36 major cities in India where we, the BKs, Baba has offered this program called Future of Power, where the leaders, 5 Fortune 500 leaders and political leaders of India come together and have a dialogue about soft power, about the future of power at this time. And I was asked to facilitate the first one ever, and I did 3 others after that. So these skills as a facilitator were now being used. And that's when Daddy said to me in this event, where she said to me, "You have a gift." Sister Janti then asked if I would work with Margaret Newton, who you'll see a picture of here. She left us 5 or 6 years ago, and Gopi, on Sister Gopi, on global functioning. 2010, I think we had the global functioning across the yagya, and we were asked to be the conflict resolution team. And so bringing the Lokik skills into the yagya. And we renamed it immediately into the co-creating harmony team. And so I spent about a decade traveling all over the world to the yagya, to Baba's families around the world, just facilitating enjoyable exchanges and experiences that bonded the family in places where there was friction or conflict, and it's just settling of karma, really. And then Margaret left her body, and they needed somebody to fill in, to play the female role, to play the sister role with peace of mind. So for the last 5 years before the COVID, I was the female, I was the sister in the peace of mind program. So those are just a smattering of things. But after the 11 years of being here, suddenly I was everywhere, all over the world, traveling for service. Thank you to Baba. And in one of those international projects, I went to see Daddy Janki, Daddy Gulzar. We as a team, but mostly I think they were taking me to see Daddy Gulzar because they wanted blessings for me, because I was taking on a new role in international service. And so they sat me in front of Daddy. And if any of you have had this experience, I mean, I've met her many, many times, but this was a very special time where they were asking her for blessings for me specifically for this project. And she's, you know, breathtakingly silent and beautiful and powerful. And she looked at me and she said, "What year were you born?" And I thought, what a question, Dad, you know, and I told her, and she said, "Acha." She said, "That's the year Baba said you would come." And I thought, me? I would? And maybe she meant many others as well. But she said, "That's the year Baba said you would come." She said, in that year, Baba said in that year, there were souls taking birth who would be ready-made Brahmins and who would become instant Brahmins to participate, to serve the yagya in the final phase of unity. And then I understood my whole life made sense. And that was the integration phase of my Brahmin life. No longer was I, you know, consultant and a Brahmin. I was both. But also I understood what the 38 years of experiences and learning 3 languages and traveling the world and becoming a conflict resolution expert, all and a facilitator of educational experiences. I understood what all of that was for. That was how I became a ready-made Brahmin. And I understood that in that moment I was built for service. That was it. The rest of my life was going to be service. So it was a really beautiful moment to just, it was like a cha-ching moment, you know, where, okay, my life makes sense. And that's why I was an instant Brahmin and have been ever since, just Baba's right hand for service, and sustained directly by Baba here without any instruments, without any seniors, really. The subtle connection to the seniors has always been a subtle connection. And somehow it's been through these projects that I have been, you know, with Sister Janti for a decade, working in the global functioning, Sister Mohini as the center person here. And very much just one line, Sister Mohini came back to Halifax 13 years after we established the first center. And she's only been here once. So she came first for 6 months, and then she came here once after. And so it's been a really beautiful, beautiful journey. So I'm going to end there on the first 2 chapters of this one's Brahmin's life. And let's just have a little meditation, shall we? Okay. So, you know, I was sharing my story, and I know each of us have a rich and beautiful story. And, you know, being in a situation like this gives one a chance to actually think about it in a really essential way. So I hope I've done justice to it. But why don't we just take a moment and pull within? And I know I'm speaking to Brahmin, so we all know how to be soul conscious. So just reconnect with yourself, the soul who is on a spiritual journey in your own Brahmin life. I'd like you to just position yourself with Baba above this world, looking down at this world, and in particular, looking down at you, his precious child. And you in this body and in this birth, this Brahmin birth of yours. And I would like you just to allow a collage of images to play across your mind of significant moments on your Brahmin journey. And in this moment, just connect with what you appreciate most, what you love most about your Brahmin life. Feel Baba's loving drishti, awakening the deepest buried parts of you that are yet to come to the surface and shine brightly. Just feel Baba's drishti pulling these beautiful hidden parts of yourself to the surface so that you can see them, that the world can see them. It is only Baba's drishti that will pull these qualities to the surface in you. Feel the breath in your body. You come back here into the gathering. I think for me, drishti is really important because I was born through drishti. And it doesn't take much for me to experience Baba's drishti. And I know how powerful that has been for me and continues to be. And I know that it's the only thing that will pull the best parts of me to the surface. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow morning. It'll be morning here when Baba comes, because for me, the best part of Baba coming, so those first few moments of drishti. And that's pretty much where I get everything I need from Baba. I enjoy everything he says after that, and I enjoy the moments of drishti after as well. Those first few moments, I don't know, it's magic, it's healing, it's medicine, it's whatever I need. And always there'll be a little, Baba's pretty straight with me. and pretty candid. So I'll usually get a pretty straight up comment about where I'm at, which I find really, really helpful. No need to waste a bunch of time on it. I just get it pretty straight. So I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you for joining me in that little meditation experience. I know, Harsha, you asked me to speak a little bit about future too. So, and I think you saved questions to the end. So I'm happy to go on to chapter 3. Is that all right? Okay. So, I don't know about you, but Shivratri every year becomes more and more significant to me. And it becomes more significant because, every year Baba says to us, it's my birthday and it's your birthday too. What day do we both share the same birthday? How many times has he said that to us? Every year since I came, he says that on Shivratri. And every year I go, yes, that's wonderful. Somehow this year, it occurred to me that my birth experience, my spiritual birth experience, is absolutely loaded with lessons, loaded with significance, loaded with meaning. And so I'm doing a day of silence this Saturday, which is the actual Shivratri, the 19th of Feb. And I've got a little here in Halifax, we're going to do a silence retreat. And I have prepared some questions which are of interest to me. I've done it, we've prepared it with a little group, but they're very much of interest to me. And they're exploring my spiritual birth experience and teasing out every aspect of that experience that is significant. And what was the significance of it? And how has that been a thread that has been true for me my entire Brahmin life? And I'm suddenly remembering more aspects of my birth experience. So I told you a little bit of it, but there's just so many more aspects that are coming back to me now. And I'm realizing how important they are. So Drishti, Shivratri, my love for that. And I think this is a very important thread as we move forward. Baba says, enjoy the days of your childhood, remember the days of your childhood. But for me, the remembering of them is almost forensic right now. I'm almost being forensic about it and teasing out little things that I hadn't realized, and I can see how significant they are. And I feel they will be significant for me right up to my final moments. And so that's one of the threads that I'm taking forward. So this is the me, Baba, and the new world. So this is chapter 3 of my Brahmin life, which, I'm in now. And I think chapter 3 probably began at the start of COVID. I don't know about the rest of you, but a lot has changed inside of me in the last 2 years. And I know that we've all accommodated in the Brahmin world with Zoom and all these things. Wonderful. I'm so glad of that. I know it's part of the drama. I know we're better producers of videos. We're much more slick and professional. We can reach anyone, anywhere, anytime. We've given up this idea you must come to Murli class, which I'm grateful for. People can be in Murli class wherever they are, and that's fantastic. I just think so many things have changed in the Brahmin family, all for the good. All for the good. But for me, my 3rd chapter began at the start of COVID. And I didn't know that until I prepared this presentation, because I was locating, where did my 3rd chapter start? It started at the beginning of COVID. And so for me, these are some of the lessons from COVID that I think are important moving forward for me. And one of them was, and this is how my chapter 3 began. I had the good fortune still to be involved with this project, an international project. And I don't know if you've had any part in this, but it's 2 journals have been created. You'll hear more about this in May. We'll be doing Murli experiments about the Golden Age. But this first one, Exquisite Exchanges with Our Future Form. You can hardly say that. I just think of it as our Golden Age project. But there is a journal. There is a YouTube channel produced. I'm happy to send Harsha all of the materials, everything, if you want. It's been absolutely fantastic. But I had the fortune to be part of this and to co-create the commentaries about being in the Golden Age. And we set for ourselves the challenge that we would not import any confluence aged ideas. So, you know, if you start talking about the golden age, you can say, and there's no violence and there's no war and we don't fight. You know, you basically import all this all this iron aged and confluence aged. So we set ourselves the challenge. We will be in the golden age in our minds, and we will describe what we see using language that is as golden aged as we can muster, as we can do right now. And it was a challenge. It was really a challenge. And to not import concepts. So we didn't import Sato Pradhan. We didn't import even governance is royal governance is one of the titles. How do we talk about ruling in the golden age when they don't have to do anything, basically? It was really fascinating. So my third chapter began with this intensive investment in experiences of the golden age. It's not something I had investigated really very much. And suddenly I found myself in an immersion experience, kind of like the way I learned French and the way I learned Spanish was complete immersion. And so I felt like I learned golden age in this immersion experience, and then talking to as many seniors as we could find to interview them about their golden age experience. And so part one was exquisite exchanges. It's available to anyone, anywhere. We're working on part two, which sweetly is called Another Day in Paradise. And it's another set of commentary. So I began COVID in the golden age. I had a wonderful first year of COVID, and in a lot of solitude because people weren't coming to the center, and I'm pretty happily a hermit. So I had no trouble with that at all, being alone a lot. So this was the start of it. And I feel that this was a signal Baba gave me, and I feel for our family, that this is the work, this is the challenge, this is the experiment we need to do, is we need to be there without importing all the concepts of what we're not when we're there. I think we just need to be there and simplify our thinking to what does it feel like? What does it look like? And to not use hyperbole. Well, it's so beautiful. How many times we had to edit that out of our writings because, if you're in the golden age, you're not talking about it as so beautiful. Talking about it like that now. So even the hyperbole, we had to, the exaggeration. So one of the threads for me. The other was, I noticed pretty quickly that for me to stay intoxicated, I had to find the things that intoxicated me. There was no one else to rely on. And I've noticed with all of the Brahmins that we have a really healthy group here now, and we're in the Atlantic Canada. So there's 4 provinces, and we're all on Zoom together every day. And healthy group means 20. That's huge for this part of the world. We're very happy with that. That's a lot of us. But anyways, I've noticed with everyone that, this cloning, this copying, this trying to be like someone else, thinking you should live your Brahmin life this way. I mean, it doesn't work. It never worked. And thankfully, I never fell into that, partly because I was alone here with Brother Michael. But I really discovered in COVID that we have to find what makes us intoxicated. We have to find that. Doesn't matter what it is, but we have to find it, and we have to spend time with this every day. We have to amplify this spark, because that's what's going to keep us going to the end. We have to live. We don't have to. We will be happier. We will be more golden aged if we live in the delight of that. The time of working hard is finished. This is the time of delight. This is the time of golden aged delight. So that's one of the things I discovered in COVID, is that I just got, and there were days, not many of them, but there was a patch probably at the start of year 2 of COVID where it was not clear to me what intoxicated me. I think I fell into a little bit of a dip. And I think it was in then that I discovered, back to the basics. How many times do we go back to the basics? But not just soul conscious. I had to find out what intoxicated me. and amplify it. And you know what? It's so much for me. It's creation. So much it's being co-creative with Baba. You know, the ideas, the flowing, and whether that's music, whether that's video, whether that's writing, doesn't matter what it is. I'm pretty self-entertaining with Baba and always intoxicated with that. And that's the second part of that, was just to stay in your own lane. You can't follow anyone else. You can't do it anyone else's way. And I know that you all know that, but that really came home for me, because we're really quite alone with this journey. We have been here with COVID, alone physically, together as a collective, and that'll be one of my next points. But you know, Baba's preparing us right now, and Drama's preparing us right now. The wireless works, and I'm alone in my final moments to pick up, to catch the signal from Baba. So I have to be just pretty discerning about my own track and what makes sense for me, and not copy anyone else, anywhere else. That was a subset of that first one. The second one was, I've really noticed an increasing efficiency in my own use of energy. And I'm not an energy waster anyways. I don't really waste time. I don't waste energy. That's probably why Daddy said to me, this gift, I can help. Oh, yeah, no, the second part she said to me, of course, she said, you have the gift to save a group from its waste. And then, as Daddy does, she waved her finger at me and she said, and do that for yourself. So, you know, okay, maybe I can waste a bit of thought energy, but I don't waste much time, and I don't waste physical, and I don't waste resources, and I've never been a money spender. And so I'm a bit of a sannyas in many, many ways. So I know she was talking about thought. So I've really noticed since COVID began, alone with thoughts, without as much stimulation of activity, really, other than one walk a day. I don't get outside of these walls. And so I've really been able to notice what's going on in my mind. And I've just set it as a personal challenge to look for ways I can increase my efficiency in the way I use my energy. So I'm catching thoughts quicker, of course. I'm spending more time generating elevated thoughts. We all know the drill. We all know what we need to do. I just noticed in COVID how this was fast-tracked for me. And maybe you've all noticed that too, but this was one of the other signals for me. This one's a big one for me. I don't have too many more battle sanskaras anymore, but I look around me and I see how quickly and easily outraged people get. And I'm an old social activist, so I lived a life of polarity. You know, I lived the battlefields where we're the good guys over here because we're against oppression. Oh, and you're the oppressors, therefore you're the bad guys. So I lived on the moral high ground of being, you know, supportive of the victims. That was my social activist life, right? And yet I was a facilitator of conflict resolution. So I could always see above two sides. That's what made me effective as a facilitator, is that I can see both sides perfectly. And I don't have to choose a side. And I don't typically choose sides, which is what makes me a good facilitator. But I look around me and I see how quickly we have a scene going on in Canada right now, which is causing a great deal of distress to Canadians because we don't see ourselves this way. We don't do that kind of fighting stuff. We talk it out. We don't fight it out. We work it out. We don't fight it out. You know, we don't bring guns to situations. You know, we plea for people to do the right thing. And then we wait for a whole bunch of days for them to do the right thing. That's Canadian. So what's happening right now in Canada is very distressing for people. And many people are outraged. And there's a lot of anger. Those people who came in from America with their guns, that's what you're going to hear in a regular Canadian conversation these days. And I'm just aware of how quickly these sanskars come up for even our Brahmins. And it's really been clear to me that I have to look at myself and check the ways that I still armor up. So by armoring up, I mean, whenever I feel vulnerable, whenever I can't make sense of a situation, or wherever I feel the suffering of others, or even an opinion, I suppose. I haven't had any opinions about the Canada thing. I did have one opinion when it started. I kind of giggled and I thought, isn't it sweet that we're not making them leave? I kind of thought it was sweet. That was my only opinion, and everyone else thought it was ridiculous. And I thought, somehow, isn't that sweetly Canadian that we're not making these people stop doing what they're doing? We're just, allowing it all to unfold and pleading, and, there was no intervention. And anyways, my point being, the battle sanskaras are even the slightest opinion about anything puts me, an opinion with any emotion in it, puts me on one side of the fence or the other. And it makes me susceptible to polarity. Even if I think I'm just expressing an opinion, if there's even an iota of emotion in that opinion, then I've kind of owned it. And it makes it easy for me to be susceptible to the battles I see around me. And there will be more craziness unfolding around us. This little battle in Canada is really small, but it's causing an enormous amount of concern, and even with Brahmins. So it was one of them, finishing the battle sanskar, so that I'm not giving any energy to opinion, so I don't get sucked into either the moral high ground or the outrage with that, or feeling angry or vulnerable. But the other one was the armoring up. And I think it's the precursor to the battle sanskaras, is when I feel vulnerable, the mechanisms, the patterns, the habits, the sanskaras that kick in when I feel vulnerable. And I call those the armoring up sanskaras. Maybe get busy, maybe run away in my mind if I can't physically, maybe denial, maybe suppress, maybe, all the things that we all do. Some people comfort eat. I don't do that, but whatever we do, they're the armoring up sanskars. So I just feel like those are really, really needing to end. And inside the yajna, with the daddies gone, the glue is not quite as strong. And we're beginning to see, it was always there, but we're beginning to see, and I don't know if it's especially India, it's probably going to be everywhere in the world, but we're beginning to see that there will be really important things done by the Brahmin family that may not feel like what I understand Baba wants me to be doing for service. Feels like, I don't think that's the way he wants me to do it. So I won't be involved in that, but I won't judge it. I won't even really have an opinion about it. Okay, if that's going to happen, that's going to happen. It's just how it is. Right. So kind of watching and wonder at how these things fall out. And for me, as things fall apart, to see what's actually coming together. So I've really enjoyed watching. COP was my first. I don't know if you were watching the COP this year. You know how we have such a presence now at the climate conference in Glasgow this year. But I watched Sister Janti and our BKs, we've always been there. And we're always there with the interfaith group. And I don't know if any of you have heard Sister Janti telling this story, but, the interfaith group is like they're like an add-on. They're like a corollary to COP. They are not important people at this gathering. And they have their little meetings, the interfaith gathering, right? That's where the BKs are. We're very often in that little group. And Sister Janti told the story this year, which I found fascinating, how little by little they became more and more important at COP. And the politicians wanted to hear a little bit more from the religious people until finally the politicians, or those that are having the big conversations, they realize that if we're going to get any traction with change globally, we're going to have to do it grassroots. And who is more in contact with the grassroots than anyone in the world? It's these religious people. Their churches, their temples, their mosques, that's where all the people go. So suddenly, the interfaith group became important. They have more of a platform, more of a voice. They get asked to the special meetings now. And when Sister Janti told that story, for me, it was just wonderful to see politico, religio come together in this very little way, interfaith at the COP. But right, this is what we're watching for now, these threads coming together, which if you get caught up in any of the battle scenes going on out there, you're going to miss. Oh, there's really cool stuff that's happening. We are threading together the golden aged world. Religio, political is going to come together. It's all happening in front of our very eyes. I just think it's thrilling. So, but if you got any battle stuff in you, you're not going to catch that. I personally want to watch those scenes. I want to watch the fun scenes of how things are coming together at the end. And so for me, one of the last, I think this might be my last lesson. There's a million more I can talk about, but I just decided to pick out 3 and just riff a little bit about it. This last one came from the Murli yesterday when Baba talked about the subtle karma. The philosophy of karma is extremely deep. And he talked about the power to discern and feeling the pulse. And I know it's a bit of a gift I have. People say when you're a scorp, you always know the dark underbelly of society. So I have no trouble feeling the dark underbelly. But the good news is I can read a room, I can feel the pulse, I know what's going on. And that's helped as a facilitator. But yesterday in the Murli, he talked about feel the pulse, and in particular in our relationships. And can we feel the pulse in our relationships so that we actually respond with what's needed in that moment, not what I want to bring or what I think is needed, but what the other person actually needs. And I thought about how important that is when we're serving, of course. The difference between being didactic, a teacher who just talks and gives, all the content knowledge to people, versus a facilitator, which, brings experiential exercises and then draws the learning from it, which has been my training over the years. But especially I took this to heart when it came to the Brahmin family and my ability to feel the pulse of my brothers and sisters, so that all my relationships in the Brahmin family would be successful because they were based on an accurate discernment, accurate feeling of the pulse. And I put this picture here because I thought it was the subtle karma of unity is based on my being able to feel the pulse. My love, my deepest love is unity. That's why Baba's been using me this way in the yajna. And I know in a Laukic sense, I would walk into a room of incredibly conflicted, dysfunctional, organizational, ego-ridden leaders and somehow see the unity that they couldn't see. Why could I do that? Because last cycle I knew we had unity. And so when I learned about the cycle, I went, oh, well, of course, that's why I see unity. It never occurred to me that no one else sees unity. Now, I'm often the only one in the room who sees unity. What I see happening at this time in the Brahmin family, and I put the chairs because I saw this yesterday morning. It was the first morning we opened for morning class. We've always had our bubble of 5 come every day, but yesterday we had allowed the bigger bubble to come in because we're now allowed here to let a bigger group in. And they came in and they hadn't been together. Once a year ago when the restrictions lifted, and then not for a year. And they came into the room together and they all had on their masks and they just moved around the room and they all sat close to the people that were in their bubble, far from the ones who weren't. Anyways, it was just poetry in motion. You couldn't have choreographed this if you tried. And I was sitting at the back and I watched them all sit, and they all sat, and it was perfect layout for the room. And I thought, how could they have known that? Like 2 years ago, we would have had to talk about that. We didn't have to talk about it. It all just happened. It just happened beautifully. And I know that's because we've been tuning in through this time of COVID. We've been really tuning in to the pulse. We can feel it. We can feel what's going on with each other. We can feel what's going on with ourselves even more. But the subtle karma of unity, now is the time that nothing can break us apart. Now is the time that that vow that our three daddies made when they put their fists together like this and said, nothing will ever come between us. That is, now is the time for us to be doing that. I feel that has happened here in the Atlantic region. We've always been very united. We're a happy bunch. We're a safe bunch. We're a real bunch. We're all pretty honest. We share our journey. We don't waste time. I don't know why. It's just been a real fortune that, yeah, I don't know. We're good together. All I can say is we're good together. But the unity we have experienced in this last 2 years touches my heart so deeply. And I watched it choreograph itself yesterday. And I feel like without ever having put up our fists like the daddies, somehow that's happened to us, that we understand that the most important commitment is in the gathering, the subtle karma of feeling the pulse and responding accurately, so that our relationships are healthy and successful. And here we don't have all that many guests, I'll say, but here we have about 8 Murli readers, and we all take turns every day. I read Murli about every 8 days. And they're mostly 5, 6, 7-year Brahmins. We all take turns on Monday night doing the public program. I haven't done a Monday night in 3 months. On our churning night, Thursday night, where all the advanced students come together, which is all of us basically. We generate questions in the chat box, and then we all take a question. We spend 5 minutes auto writing, and then the person who auto wrote that question reads their answer aloud, and then we move on. So we have really moved away from an expert model here some time ago, and we have embodied it for the last 2 years, and we will continue to do that, because I feel that where we're at right now in this cycle is the army will be revealed, and it's no longer about any one individual shining light. We're past the celebrity time. We're past the individual time. It's very much about the collective, and how we operate as a collective will reveal Baba to the world. So I feel like that's a really important signal right now for us. Om Shanti. I know there'll be some Q&A, but I brought a blessing for all of you. Would you like me to save that to the end, Harsha?
Sure.
After the Q&A? Or now?
If anyone have any questions, please leave your questions in the chat. Yeah. So I was thinking,
blessing to the end or now?
So you can share the blessing, and then we can meditate on that blessing for under.
Lovely. Okay. So here's your blessing, and let's meditate on this one. Because feeling the pulse at this time is everything, let's take from yesterday's Murli the power to discern. So pick a number, 1 to 3, and stick with it. And this is going to be your blessing to enhance your power to discern right now in your Brahmin life and for this next chapter. Okay, here we go. You can read your own or take a screenshot, and then we'll sit with that. So let's just take a moment with this power to discern, whichever one you've selected. You just read that to yourself. And then just pull inside and be with yourself for a moment and be with Baba. I'd like you to take Baba's wisdom in this moment in the form of energy. So as you've listened to, what my sharing this evening has been, just based on reflections on my journey, anything that stood out for you as relevant for you, I'd like you to take that to Baba and sit with Baba and just feel his energy filling that for you. So what has been relevant for you from this evening's talk? And I'll just leave you with that for a moment to sit with Baba and embrace that. Take it in. Let Baba fill it with pure energy. And as you breathe in, consider how the power of discernment will be your best friend for this final chapter of the Kalpa. In the yajna, with the people around you, in your center, in your region, your friends, your family, just allow Baba to enhance this power in you, shine a light on this power to discern, but also just for you to feel the value of this power in your life at this time as a Brahmin. To be able to discern your path forward, to discern what Baba wants you to do as separate from your own wishes or desires, as separate from the preferences of the people around you, including other instrument souls, as separate from culture and religion. It's just a pure, clear path, an honest, clean, simple connection to Baba is your lifeline at this time. And it is the power to discern that will keep you there and safe. Om Shanti.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy Ben. So there is one question from Brother Pear. Brother Pear, would you like to unmute yourself? Or yeah.
Hello, Brother Pear. I'm so happy to be using your music. Thank you for your blessings.
Yeah, I really appreciate the feedback, like, hey, that's it. Like when Dottie said to you, hey, that's good what you're doing, like, hey, that keep doing that.
It's very good, Per. It's
So,
very serviceable. It'll be up on the YouTube channel any minute now.
Traveler, well, you can't go wrong if you take a line from Baba's Morley or a song from Baba's Morley, that it's like Traveler of the Night.
The best one. I
Don't
love
be
it.
weary, That's a universe. I played that for people, just different people, very spiritual people. And that's really great. Whether Christian or whoever, they get the essence of it. And like Baba, when he would hear a song, a film song, he just go, hey, that's a great song, in the 60s. And then later, when they came to Madhuban, some of these same souls who wrote those songs in the 60s, they came in the 90s and 80s. And they met Avyat Baba. And Baba looked at them and he said, you know who inspired you to write those songs? They go, oh, wow, yeah, that's right. So anyway, I appreciate it. Well, funny, Dadi Gulzar was born on the same day as Brother Per, July 2nd. And I'm like, wow, like we have nothing else much in common, but I talk a lot more than she does. But she said to me a few exchanges which were fun. But anyway, I was curious, what was that year that she?
I shouldn't tell you. Per.
1950. I'm just curious. Are you born in the year of the tiger, or are you born in 58?
No, I'm a little pig. I'm a 59.
59. Okay.
Babe.
Sister Elizabeth is born in 59 at Anubhuti.
Yeah.
She's my 1 year young. I was born in 58.
Yeah.
So I may be a troublemaker, but I think I was in Gyan in my past life, learning lessons.
Yeah. And, there may have been other years too, Per. I just, and it may have been a scope of time for all I know.
Yeah,
it's just that was that moment. She asked.
He was invoking us back then. You know what I'm saying?
He was invoking
Brahma Baba,
Yeah.
as a little kid, I remember, I was so worried about nuclear war in 1965 when my brother told me about, he was an activist and he said there's this nuclear bomb, and I just couldn't sleep and I was terrified, like we're all going to die. And then one day I woke up feeling all peaceful and happy, and I had this dream and this sense that I had a friend in India. I didn't even know what a guru was or anything, or a guide or anything, but I would swing in my backyard on a swing and sing songs for God, which I didn't, was just learning about God, from my older sister, and about angels that protect you and stuff. So that was a very pure time. As a little boy, a little, 6-year-old kid. And I distinctly remember Brahma having sense of Brahma, maybe a dream or something. It was just this feeling supported, like, yeah, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. And I had forgotten all about it until many years, even well into Brahmin life. And I was like, wow, yeah, Brahma was remembering us, invoking us.
Per, I also feel that the daddies are doing that now. And I've had dreams that I've not had before. And I'm feeling some of the projects that are coming to mind and then are turning into things are happening so quickly, so easily. I really feel their hands very much. So in the same way, I think our daddies are invoking us to another level as well. And maybe you're all feeling that. I see some nods, so I'm not alone in that, yeah.
So Judy, there's a question around the books, where we can find the books. And
oh, right. Oh, yeah. I don't know if I should say anything about those.
You can share.
Yeah, sure. Let's. I don't know if I can go back and find that slide. Do you want me to do that?
Sure.
I can't remember them all unless I look at them. Yes, you can find them anywhere. They're all on Amazon. So they're pretty easy to find. Right. So, okay, first one was Seven Secrets. That was a beautiful novel. The next one that came was the Alphabet series, Virtues A to Z. So Deb and I here were facilitating 26 nights of the virtues. So every Monday night public group, we did A, and then the next week B, and we created experiential exercises, which were really fun. Created a fantastic group bonding experience. And these, I have used these all over the world. They're fantastic. So we thought, let's just write them up as a book. Wrote them up. Next thing we wrote was the 16 Celestial Degrees, because it had been 20 years since Anthea Church wrote her beautiful book about living, the 16 Celestial Degrees book. Can't remember what that was called. I loved it so much. One of my favorite books. Anyways, we did all of the research into Jagdish Bai's original 16, and then we read Anthea's book, and then Anthea Church wrote the foreword to this book. It's beautiful. So the Living as Art is really for Brahmins. You could do the Alphabet series with the public. That's full of good activities for public, but this, and Brahmins too, but the Living as Art is definitely for us. I learned so much about what the arts are, and there's a chapter on each of the arts using Jagdish Bai, Anthea's, Bapdada's, and then some exercises with it. So that was lovely. The Beautiful Thoughts book, the green one, all of those daily thoughts that I've written all these years, somebody, actually Marge in Boston, wanted to give them to her family for Christmas. And she said, they're not going to want an email every day. No way, Jose, make a book. So I made a book and put a whole bunch of them. And I said, well, okay, you pick out the 365 best daily thoughts for the last 10 years. And so a group of 10 people who received them all the time got together and they picked out their favorites. And so that's what that book was. It was just for service for our families. And then Beautiful Thoughts book number 2 is actually the most beautiful book of the series, because it's got Judy Rich's internal design. Inside the book, it's all Judy Rich's. It's absolutely gorgeous. And that was from the 2 years of COVID. People wrote and said, these are the best daily thoughts you've ever done in the 23 years I've been following them. So Baba inspired something. So again, a small group picked 365 of the best. If I were to get, and we ordered 100 of them for the center, and we gave them to all our contact souls and friends. So if you were going to give any of these to contacts, it's the Beautiful Thoughts book number 2. It's the winner, and 7 Secrets of the Universe for the ones who like novels. But then, oh no, the other one you could give to the public, and Harsha Bai, I sent you 10 of them. Amazon is sending them to you today or tomorrow, so you're going to get them.
Oh,
10 of the soul stories. So for Rocky this year, we wanted to give a gift to all of our people, and we knew that they didn't have any bandwidth to read anything educational. So we did a chicken soup for the soul book. And we collected a whole bunch of soul stories, like uplifting, beautiful, you see them on the web, stories. And we wrote a bunch ourselves. And it's a bedside book. And people have loved it. The soul stories is what you're receiving by Amazon this week, Harsha Bai. I sent you 10 of them.
thank you.
You're welcome. And then the God Experience was Ken and I wrote that book with, and we asked Deb to help. So Ken and I were asked to do the Return to Source public facing. Remember when we did the Return to Source program as a BK family? And then we did an outward facing. And this book is the 8 different names of God that the world's major religions use. And Ken and I wrote exercises, meditations, and a description of God by that title. That's a beautiful book. That's a good BK book. And public too. They're all for both. So that's it. Baba just keeps pumping these books out of me. That's what you get when you're alone and you need to churn.
Beautiful.
They're serviceable. They're serviceable. That was the point. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the quick essence. So there are a couple of questions. Anuja, feel free to unmute yourself.
All right. Shanti sister, this is Anuja. So I really loved the talk. So many thanks, because I'm also a program manager by profession, and I do presentations and all those things. I really loved your slides, sister. Thank you. So I had this question that I like the connotation which you gave to the conflict resolution in spirituality terminology. Like, was it co-harmony of thoughts? What did you say?
We called it co-creating harmony, because whatever language you use reinforces. So if you use conflict resolution, then you're reinforcing the fact that people feel like they're in conflict. And conflict is just an emotional reaction to differences. That's all it is. Like, we all have differences, no problem. It's the emotional reaction to it that is conflict. So instead, we wanted to do co-creating harmony with Baba, because that's what we're doing at this time. So that was the title we gave it, Anuj. Yeah, so
did you use it in your professional world, Lokik world also, co-creating harmony? Like, did it fly?
no, people don't get co-creating. That word doesn't work. They're not that interested in harmony either. I have to think about how I'm using it professionally now. Some organizations are okay with co-creating. It might be, the team you want, or the atmosphere you want, or I don't have to think about that. I'm just working with an environmental organization here right now. And somehow we're doing it in a way that never says conflict. Let me think about that. It's not coming to me right now. But anyways, the idea is find other language. Yeah, it's not coming to me right now what I'm doing, Lokik.
No problem. So we can pick it up later.
Try it out. See what works for you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Kalpana Ben, you had a question?
Om Shanti. I had a Lokik World question also. We were recently with a group of friends, and I felt tremendous negativity coming from one person, and it's still bothering me. So how do you use that situation and Baba's power to create positivity about the situation, or the power to discern? How do you use it in a practical situation?
I don't know your situation, Kalpana Ben, so I don't know all the details of it. Usually the discernment that I would use is I would want to understand for myself what was going on inside of me in that moment. Where was the negativity coming from? Like, had I provoked anything? I would want to discern that. What was my part, if any, in that situation? And then I would want to discern what happened inside of me in the face of that negativity. Did it make me feel small? Did it make me feel afraid that I'm going to lose their love? Did it make me feel bad about myself? Like I took that on and there's something that I don't feel good about myself. So I would use the power to discern to do all of that. And I would probably do that with Baba. I'd sit with Baba and go, okay, what was that about? What's going on? Usually. And I would get some kind of insight. So that's where the discernment first. And then really just a healthy dose of self-love and a healthy dose of compassion rather than armor. Do you know what I mean? Because you can armor up in the face of that. So just a lot of self-love and a lot of Baba love for self, right? So there could be healing needed there. It could be a karmic scene that isn't going to go away overnight. You're just going to have to tolerate. You're going to have to get yourself through that, and only with Baba will you be able to discern what that is. So that's how I would use it.
So it's not about the other person. It's about what it creates within me.
Pretty much. Never. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you may have some karma with that other person, but even if you do, you have nothing to do with their part of the equation. You can only deal with your part of the equation, right? So looking at what comes up in you when they play that part out because the habitual pattern is what karma is. And even if you brought the pattern from before, you're still you're playing out your half of the equation. When you change that, the whole equation changes. Right? So yeah, you don't think about them at all. I would do a cursory discernment about, did I in that moment say anything, or is there something else affecting that person that has nothing to do with me? There are all kinds of things are happening for people now that have nothing to do with me. And I might become a target, in which case I definitely want to learn how not to be a target for someone else's, frustration or karmic settling, right? And again, that's something I need to learn, because we can make ourselves targets in many different ways. Being too naive, being slightly aggressive with our own attitude. There's all kinds of ways we can be a target. We don't want that either. But I would think about the other person at the beginning, just to see, is there something else maybe going on in their world I don't know about? Or did I do anything with them to provoke? And then after that, I would focus entirely on me.
I do feel that, it's natural for me to feel that that person has issues and not me. But all I know is I'm trying to be positive about it. But like you said, maybe he has his karmic account to settle, or whatever his role to play in bringing up this emotion in me, and then how I deal with that emotion.
Right. And you, if your inclination in this situation is to blame him for his negativity, then that's the thing you have to dissolve, is the blaming him. So that means there's subtle anger in you. Anytime we want to blame someone else, it's because there's something in us, right?
So then how do you deal with the subtle anger?
Yes, well, that's a whole other evening's conversation, isn't it? But, honestly, there is anger there. I think for me, the first thing is to be honest about it. Oh, there's anger. Second thing is to know it's not me, it's in me. I'm not angry, I'm having anger in this moment, right? And then, what provokes this anger in me? And that's the conversation with Baba, right? And who knows what you'll unravel there, but there's a healing. But it always starts with honesty first.
Which is the hardest thing to do. Right.
It is.
Yeah. So thank you. You've given me a lot to think about. Thank you.
Thank you
Shanti.
for being so honest. Yeah. Om Shanti.
Thank you very much, Sister Judy. It's getting really late, but I definitely enjoyed your session. As we come closer, we naturally play our own part, and we are very comfortable in our own skin, and others get comfortable in our presence. And that classroom scene that you put together, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Simple, but how naturally things start falling into place. I remember Anthony Strano mentioned the similar thing when all the seniors, they had a little administrative meeting or something. So, but they decided to start that with 3 days bhatti, total silence. They live together, they cook together, they clean together, but they were in silence doing yoga and stuff. Lot of things happened so gracefully. Everyone know what other was expecting, and then things going through. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will have you again for one of the sessions on bringing golden age, right?
I will send you those. Do you have those, Harsha? Do you have those?
Not actually.
I will send you and you can share, please. It's so beautiful. I'll just send you the journal and the playlist, and you can listen to all of the commentaries on your own or as a group. We did it here every Sunday morning. We did one of them, and then we shared our experiences with it. It was so enriching for the family.
Yeah, it is really beautiful when you pointed out that talk about golden age, not with reference to Kali Yuga, not with reference to Kasangam Yuga. It means a lot.
Very different. very challenging.
Yeah, that it will be very beautiful. It will definitely invoke the divinity. Yeah.
I will send to you. So enjoy Bapdada tomorrow, and I will take leave and go to bed.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Take
Oh, Shanti, lots of love. Thank you,
a
Harsha.
together.
To everyone. So
Shanti.
great to see
Om
you.
Shanti.
Om Shanti. Good night.
Thank you.